America would like to think that it has progressed as an accepting society, when in fact it stays stagnant on certain views, such as social equality. America prides itself on equality. It believes that everybody should be treated fairly. If this is true, then why does the wage gap still exist? The wage gap will affect almost everybody who is listening to this presentation. Whether you're black, Hispanic, whatever, you may be facing this unconstitutional act performed by most employers. I'm a Hispanic person with a black Hispanic father and a white mother. Once I get into the work field, I don't want the wage gap to exist because then it would affect me personally. It's time that we stop seeing people by their gender or sexuality, start seeing everybody as an equal. The wage gap in the workforce is alive and well. No matter how educated you are, it doesn't really matter unless you're an Asian American or white male. Although the wage gap between men and women has decreased every year for the last 50 years, it still exists today. The wage gap is also seen among races, and it's even seen in the LGBTQ community. First thing I want to talk about is women receiving less pay due to different occupations. Glassdoor.com conducted a study based on more than 500,000 salary reports from its users. This study compared the pay of men and women with the same job title in similar companies with the same education in the same state. Women were still paid less than the men in the study by 5%. But this is basically only seen in the medical and law field. And the reason that this is because women take less pay so they can have a more flexible schedule, so they can spend time with their family and things like that. The occupation with the least gender pay progression is construction. Construction has not made any progress in this field in the last 40 years, and that's a major bump in the road in closing the gap in the gender pay wage. Women have been facing the wage gaps ever since the end of World War II. Since the end of World War II to 1963, women made about 59 to 64 cents to every man's $1. In 1963, John F. Kennedy passed the Equal Pay Act, which made it illegal for people to pay less based on sex. Although this act was passed, women were still getting paid less. Women's wages have been rising by half a penny since 1963 for every year. If it continues to rise at such a slow rate, then the wage gap won't close until 2059, another 44 years. Not only is the wage gap visible between genders, it also exists among races. I'll talk to you about the racial wage gap between women. A report by the American Association of University Women shows that Hispanic, African American, and Native Hawaiian women have lower median annual earnings compared to non-Hispanic whites and Asian American women. People would think this is because that they are more educated. That's not the truth here. The truth is that these people face more discrimination than whites and Asian Americans. The largest wage gap based on race between women is between Hispanics and whites. Hispanics earn 54 cents to every man's $1, while whites are earning 78 cents. I will now talk about the racial wage gap between men. According to NBC News, Asian American men earn the highest median hourly wage among all races, making about $24 an hour. Now, CNN performed a study with white men who make $21 an hour and black men who earn about $15 an hour. They got two applicants who are qualified just as equal, and they had them apply to jobs. One had a black sounding name, one had a white sounding name. The person with the white sounding name got called back every time in this study, and that's an act of discrimination at its finest right there. We know that the wage gap exists strongly in gender and race, but did you know that it also lives in the LGBTQ community? Is the LGBTQ community protected by a law or act that protects them for equal pay? According to AmericanProgress.org, there are laws that protect gay or transgender people for equal pay, but these laws are very weak and employers just look past them. And many times people in this community are fired just based on their sexual identity or sexual reference. A study shows that gay men and bisexual men earn about 10 to 32% less than a heterosexual man with the same qualifications. But lesbian and bisexual women tend to earn more than their heterosexual counterparts. Does education play a big role in the wage gap in the LGBTQ community? Well, gay people are nearly twice more likely to have a bachelor's degree than a heterosexual person. So why does the wage gap exist? It's because gay people tend to accept jobs that are atypical to their gender, which end up paying less. This is not the only reason that the wage gap exists in the LGBTQ community, though. The main reason is discrimination. They face it harder than anybody, more than women or more than race. All the points I mentioned are connected by one thing: discrimination. Until discrimination is stopped, the wage gap will continue to exist. The wage gap is still a problem in our society when it really shouldn't be. The wage gap isn't only between men and women, but like I said, between race and people of the LGBTQ community. The most known wage gap is the wage gap between men and women, but I'm here to inform you that the wage gap exists between race and people of the LGBT community as well. It's hard for me to believe that in 2016 we can have a woman run for president, but God forbid that a woman earns more money than a man in the work field.